Welcome. In this video, we're going to cover the company level settings. So first, you're going to want to make sure that you select one of your companies from the dropdown. You're going to then use the navigation under the settings menu, and we're going to tap to company settings. Here you're going to find all of the company-based settings that override the global settings. So within our system, you will find global settings that looks very similar to these. And at the company setting menu here, you can override or supersede those options at the global level. I'm going to cover each of these menus and talk about their use case. So we've got anti-ransomware. This is a list of anti-ransomware software that we have identified and recognized in environments. If we see these software titles installed in your environments, those will be counted towards anti-ransomware software. We do a security check on assets, and we tell you if you have anti-ransomware installed or not, and this is the list that we recognize as valid. If you want to add any additional anti-ransomware titles to this list that are not here, you can simply go add, you can give us the name of that title, and you can tap save. And I'll just show you here. So you just give us the name, you'll hit save, and it will basically add that in. And so we'll be looking for an exact match in the software installed list on an asset to determine if that's installed or not. So that's how you can basically add into the list. You can also remove from the list using the arrow over, which pushes it to the exclude side. And so if something is found in the system, this would not be counted. If it's on the exclude side and we find it, for example, if you said, hey, when Microsoft Defender is picked up, I don't want to count that as anti-ransomware software, you can drop it in the list over here to exclude it. Okay? So that's going to be your anti-ransomware. Backup software is going to work exactly pretty much what we just talked about on an anti-ransomware side. As part of the report card check, we also check for backups software installed on the machines. These are some of the backup software agents and softwares that we recognize and have encountered. And again, if you don't find what you're using in the list, you can always tap add to put it in or remove any of these that you don't want to count. You can also remove the backup check from the report card altogether. If you don't care about backups and you don't want to talk about them, then we can just remove them or suppress them from the report card itself. Brute force settings. These are options to enable or disable. If you enable, we will do a default check against SSH ports here listed. If you want to do any additionals, then you can specify those ports. For example, RDP ports, RDS ports. And those ports we will check for any brute force weak password enumeration. So if you have default passwords or known password combinations, we will let you know based on those port checks if you enable these on the company level. Compliance scan. This is where we turn on or turn off the compliance scan frameworks and standards based on the company's compliance scanning options. So if you don't want to scan for compliance, so to speak, you can turn everything off to blank and save. That'll disable compliance scanning altogether. If you want to target very specific compliance because of the customer's requirements, then you can enable those according to the needs. Our deprecated asset retention period. So this is how long are we going to hold deprecated assets in our system for. You can set that value here with a minimum of 3 days with a max of 1 year. And again, those are going to be the deprecated assets here and how long we're going to retain those in our system for historical reporting purposes. You got your deprecation days. This is the automatic move to deprecated state by an agent or an asset after we haven't seen it online or been scanned after X number of days. I've got 180 in here. You can adjust this to whatever you'd like. The default is 90 days if you don't set it or haven't set it. So if we don't see an agent or an asset online for 90 days, it will be considered deprecated and moved to the deprecated state, and then it will stay in there based on the retention period. Okay. Domain scan, this is to allow you to run just an ad hoc one-off domain scan to return SPF and DMARC for a domain, kind of in a random spot, but nothing outside of that is useful here. This is just an informational quick scan at the company level. EDR works similar to the anti-ransomware and backup checks we discussed. This is, again, EDR software that we recognize. This list is a lot larger. A lot of partners are using EDR in our field. So we have recognized quite a few of these. If you don't find yours, you can always add it. And again, this will be what is counted as valid in the security report card as valid EDR software. Excluding components from the security report card. So again, at the customer level, if you wanted to remove any of these items that we check on the report cards at the customer level, you do have an option to do that. So if you're not interested in showing one of those, check the box, that'll drop it off the report. Firewall, similar to backup software, ransomware, EDR. Again, these are firewall models and softwares that we've encountered. If we see them, they'll be confirmed as valid firewalls. If you don't see them, you can add yours into the list. The patching status area, this is where you would enable and agree to the end user license agreement to turn patching on at the customer level. If this is on at the global level, then it will be on for all customers. You can turn it on or off at the customer level in this menu. This module is included with Connect Secure, doesn't cost anything extra. It's part of our agent. There is no third-party licensing involved. This is all owned, operated by the Connect Secure agent. We've got performance management settings here specifically for your probes. So if you are concerned with the amount of threads or traffic that the probes are using when they run their scans, this will allow you to adjust Nmap and SMB performance counts. We automatically default the appropriate settings here, but this is if you want to adjust them for any reason. This is our ports policy section that'll allow you to define insecure, denied, excluded, allowed, and secure ports. Now, some of this is a little gray area. We have some really great information in our help link around this. Again, I'm going to guide you guys here to the help link for a moment. If you look at the docs here, and you go to this help link, you're going to find our user documentation for company settings. And in this table, we've got all those settings listed. And if you come down to that ports policy section, we've got a really handy info panel here that talks about what happens when you define insecure versus denied versus excluded versus allowed. Now, all ports will be scanned except if you add excluded ports in. So if you don't want to scan a particular port when you're running probe scans, then you can exclude them from here. Otherwise, all these other ports will be scanned. They'll just be displayed in the results according to their categories. Okay. We've got report settings at the company level. This is where you can customize this company's report settings in the regards to their Word docs and Excel reports. This allows you to customize the watermark, header, footer alignment text, of course the images, the header, footer, the company logos that are displayed, and the cover pages that are used on the reports. So the report settings allow you to come in and make those updates. Same for Excel. Navigate to the Excel side. This will let you customize the Excel settings. Remote agent install. This is available only at the company settings. You won't find this in the global settings. So at the customer level, you can come in and enable remote agent install. What this will do is use the probe agent, and it will attempt to install our lightweight agent on any asset it detects using these protocols. So for Windows assets, where SMB is enabled, it will use the SMB share to drop and install the agent. Mac and Linux, it will need credentials with SSH access so it can do the installations there. And you basically just got to turn that switch on and hit save. And that will enable that remote installation from any of your probes to any asset without an agent installed. Scan time interval. Really important that you visit this for your customers and you tell the system how often should the lightweight agents that are online run their scans. You can do it as often as every 15 minutes. Got other choices available all the way up to the longest would be every 24 hours or once per day. So this will allow you to control the frequency on those lightweight agent scans. Generally, I find most partners sitting in the 30-minute to 1 hour range, but you definitely can go all the way up to 15 minutes if it's needed. That is our default if you do not set anything. The from and to time. This can be a little bit tricky. At a first glance, it would appear that you need to set a from and to time here, but you do not. From and to time is optional, and it's used if you want to exclude a scan during that time. So if you have this blank, this means run a scan on a lightweight agents every 15 minutes. If you didn't want to run a scan for inside of a certain window, then I could put that time in here. For example, if I did not want to scan between 9 and 11 a.m., I could put it this way. The scans will run every 15 minutes except between 9 and 11. After 11, they'll resume every 15 minutes again. So this is a way to exclude scanning. Again, not required unless you want to exclude. You can always clear these out if you're planning to not exclude scans. Clear the values, tap save. Okay, suppress vulnerability days. This is a option to suppress the vulnerabilities from showing up on 0-day or just released patches or updates. So specifically for Microsoft KB and updates, if Microsoft releases a patch today and it's not installed, we count that as a vulnerability. If you guys want to suppress that vulnerability for a number of days after it's been initially released, so maybe 3 days or 5 days or 7 days, or depending on how your patch schedules run and your patch policies, you may not want to be penalized, so to speak, until a patch has been installed. So this will give you the option to suppress those days until after the initial release has been done. Now, you can do the same behavior for application vulnerabilities. So these are going to be third-party software application vulnerabilities that are not part of the operating system. Okay? So you can set those days accordingly. Tag management. If you're using tags in the assets to group your assets together, this is where you can see those tags and manage them, so to speak, in the terms of adding and removing the groups and seeing what's part of those groups. So I've got, again, some sample tags. Tags can be put in manually, meaning we created these ones, or they're created automatically based on checks that we do as far as server, workstation, and Windows 11 compatibility. Those are just the automated ones that we run. If you tap on one of the tags here, you'll see a list of the machines that belong to that group. If you need to remove those tags, of course, you can just tap on the trash can icon to delete the tags. And if you want to add tags, of course, you need to go into the actual company tags section under tag rules to add new ones. This just allows you to view and delete them. Okay. Last but not least, time zone settings at the company level. So you want to make sure that you come into each company and you have the appropriate time zone defined. If your customer is in a different time zone than you just, again, make sure it's their time zone. So when you configure schedules and look at time and date stamps, when we say, hey, we're going to run a scan at 9 a.m., 9 a.m. means 9 a.m. their time. Okay? So these are going to be your company settings. As I mentioned earlier, if you tap the help link from this view, you'll get to the company settings documentation page where we've got additional information about all of the different settings here, how-to videos, guides, any additional info that you might have been looking for should be there. If it's not, as always, contact our support team. We will get it to you and get the documentation updated.